Hello everybody, I'm Salif, and today I'll be continuing Broken Dreams and Healing Hearts. This will be Chapter 4, entitled Class 1A, an Analysis. Izuku blinked groggily at the ceiling as he sat his phone back down on his nightstand. He had been staying with his foster guardians for almost a month now. Even in the safe and mostly stress-free environment, Midoriya was still struggling. He had developed insomnia and a form of trust issues after the whole mess with All Might and Bakugo that led to him even meeting Aizawa in the first place. Aizawa had explained to the Greenette that Bakugo was not a friend, so he shouldn't be treated as such. What if everybody just turned their backs and left him, or in the #1's hero case, lie? This was the reason for him distancing himself from everyone. Shoto, however, the Greenette couldn't seem to push him away, as he found comfort in him. He saved him after all. Over the first weekend when they had gone shopping to get the teen more than just 2 pairs of sweatpants, 2 hoodies, and basic essential needs, Midoriya had stayed close to Aizawa the whole time, occasionally holding on to his sleeve when a group of teens walked by. He had also refused to speak or even look at anyone in the mall, only talking in a hushed voice to his foster guardians. Not to mention when he first met Nemuri, he had practically ran behind the black-haired man. "Izuku," Aizawa said while walking over to him on the couch. Midoriya had invested all of his time into watching an American pre-Quirk show that Yamada was obsessed with and insisted he watched. So the young teen was currently curled up on the couch with Cloud and Bastard, a big black cat that was way too big to be sitting on his shoulders. It was comforting though. "Yeah?" Midoriya questioned while pausing the TV, Bastard hissing slightly at the movement of the arm he was balanced atop of. "I'd forgotten to tell one of my friends that I was fostering a kid, and well, she's here. I just wanted to tell you before you got scared." Izuku nodded. "Okay, that's fine," he said while curling into the couch more, his grip on the remote tensing ever so slightly. Shota glanced down at the Greenette's hand for a moment but said nothing. "Shota, you know it's not very gentleman of you to leave a lady at the door." A woman with long, dark hair came around the corner, trailing off as she saw Midoriya. "Aw, you didn't tell me you brought home a stray," she practically screeched in joy as she went to give Izuku a hug. The teen immediately froze, his whole body tensing before deciding that flight was a better idea, and quickly flung the blanket off and shot to his feet. Cloud simply jumped off his lap and found a new job by following the teen, while Bastard hissed and walked off. The Greenette then quickly ran behind Aizawa, shaking violently as he grabbed onto Shota's sleeve with a vice grip. One panic attack later, and after Izuku and Nemuri had been properly introduced, the teen wouldn't leave Aizawa's side. It didn't go well, to say the least. They did make up in the end, and Nemuri had a new title as Auntie Nem, but that didn't change the fact that he was wary when meeting new people. Midoriya groaned while rubbing a hand down his face, blinking the tiredness away. Last night, he had a nightmare about Bakugo somehow finding out where he lived, and came to get revenge for getting him in trouble with the police. The cats had helped him when he woke up, thankfully, but that didn't change the fact that he wasn't able to fall back into unconsciousness. He had spent the last 6 hours finishing that American show, and now had nothing to do. Figuring he should probably, most likely, get ready for the day, he begrudgingly got up, Cloud following close behind as he padded into the kitchen. "Morning, little listener," Hazashi said while glancing at him before fixing his eyes back onto whatever he was making for breakfast. Honestly, as long as it's edible, Izuku doesn't care less what it is. The young teen flops into the seat that he claimed after a few days of staying there, and laid his head onto his folded arms. Shota glanced up from his papers he was grading on the other side of the table. "Did you sleep last night?" the undergrad pro asked while lifting his coffee to take a sip. "No," Midoriya muttered into his arms. "Was it another nightmare?" There was a long pause before a small movement from the teen indicated a nod. Shota sighed before getting up and patting the kid's curls, causing Midoriya to look at him groggily. "We have to go to UA today, so you can't go back to sleep. I can offer you coffee, though." Aizawa smirked slightly as he got another nod from Izuku, this one more excited and awake. "Sho, he's 12. He doesn't need to be drinking coffee," Hazashi exclaimed from the kitchen. "Why not? I drink coffee at his age." Aizawa said while stepping into the kitchen, presumably getting Izuku's coffee. The greenette watched Aizawa make him coffee while Hasashi cooked breakfast next to him. They talked comfortably to one another. Izuku silently wondered how long this would last. How long would he be staying with them? He's gotten so comfortable with them, even if it's only been a month. The young teen hates to admit it, but he doesn't want to leave. However, even if it's just temporary, and Aizawa and Yamada won't be in his life forever, he cherished every moment he had with them and engraved it into his memory. Aizawa walked over, tapping the bottom of the mug on the top of Izuku's head gently. "Hey!" He laughed out while going to grab the cup from him, only for the underground pro to move it out of his reach with a smirk. "Go get dressed first." Midori had groaned before getting up. "This is cheating, you know." "Uh-huh," Aizawa said sarcastically. After Izuku got dressed and was given his coffee, they all headed to UA. Yamada and Aizawa needed to get there relatively early, so they'd be there when class started. Midoriya would just stay in the staff room and work on school until around 3 p.m. when his therapy with Hound Dog would start. Izuku had been transferred to online school shortly after moving in with his new guardians, as Aizawa didn't want to risk him being bullied again. The greenette didn't mind though. He could do school anywhere now, and he didn't have to be around people. Plus, his guardians had started letting him hang out in the staff room at UA while they taught the heroes in training. He loved it because it gave him a sense of belonging, and, on the plus side, he got to see a lot of his favorite pro heroes up close. There was one man that was practically a skeleton that would occasionally show up with Nezu that he didn't like very much. He couldn't quite put his finger on why he didn't like the man, but he'd still try to avoid him, looking at him from a distance at most. Putting that aside, the greenette loved his new normal. He even got Nezu to teach him a few times, as he often finished his schoolwork fast and would have nothing to do. It was either that or bothering Aizawa, and he had a class to teach. Izuku would often find himself engrossed in his studies, finishing course after course. It didn't, however, make sense to the greenette. All of his grades from out there were 1 point away from failing. But now he was getting all A's, and he even finished his first year in middle school already. The teen sighed as he stretched his arms above his head, before yawning and peering over the back of the couch to look out at the training grounds. Every now and then, he'd catch glimpses of students training outside. He wanted to get a better look at their quirks so bad and write down everything in a notebook. Although, he did analysis to make himself a better hero, but now, he doesn't even know why he'd want to be a hero. At first, he wanted to be like All Might, saving people with a smile. Now that thought made him want to throw up. All Might was a liar. He tells everyone that they can be heroes, but the moment someone quirkless is added to that everyone, he goes back on his word. Midoriya did not want to be like that. Izuku peeled his eyes off the students below as he heard the staff door open. Nezu and that skeleton-looking man walked in. "Ah, Izuku-kun, I thought you would have been at lunch by now. My apologies for interrupting your studies." The teen waved a dismissive hand while shutting his laptop and setting it next to him on the couch. No, don't worry, Nezu-sensei. I just finished, actually." The mouse bear thing clapped his paws in joy. "Wonderful, as expected of you. Would you like something else to do?" "No, it's fine. I was actually going to bother Shota about writing some analysis about the first year's quirks." "Who's this, Nezu?" The blonde man spoke up before Izuku could finish what he was saying. "Ah, my bad, Yagi-kun. This is Izuku, Aizawa-kun's foster son." Nezu responded whilst pointing a paw at the greenette, causing him to turn bright red. Son? Yagi asked surprised, spitting out a bit of blood. "I'm not his son, Nezu-sensei," the teen grumbled under his breath. "Anyway, it's nice to meet you, Yagi. I've seen you around with Nezu a few times." "You have?" the blonde asked surprised, getting a small nod from the teen. "You guys don't really hide it, plus I don't make an effort to talk to people." Izuku narrowed his eyes at Yagi for a second before schooling his expression into a calmer one. Midori didn't like this guy. His whole everything was putting him on edge for some reason. His voice also sounded strangely familiar. "Ah, well, Yagi-kun will be coming around more often, so you'll most likely be seeing more of each other." "Nezu-san, I'm a bit confused. Why is a child here exactly? This is a hero school after all." "I am not a child." Izuku snapped, glaring at the man. Yagi jumped at the tone of the teen's voice before rubbing the back of his neck. My bad, my boy. Don't call me that. For some reason, every word this man spouted made his skin crawl with disgust and anger. I'm leaving, Nezu-sensei. Text me if you have another lesson for me, the greenette said before stepping out of the staff room and going to find his Aizawa. Kami. Nezu was getting into his head. Once the teen got to the 1A's classroom door, he opened it without knocking, expecting all the first years to be at lunch. Shota? Izuku scanned the room for barely even a second before his viridian eyes landed on a group of 3 teens. 1 blonde guy, 1 light blue, almost purple-haired girl, and 1 black-haired boy with elven features, talking to the very man he was looking for at the front of the class. Aizawa paused his conversation and looked over at Midoriya. Problem child. You need something. No, he drawled, keeping his eyes on the group of teens warily. Am I interrupting? He cautiously questions, moving his eyes to look at Aizawa. No, Izuku. What did you need? Izuku brightened back up, remembering what he came here for. You guys are doing quirk training in class today, right? Aizawa sighed before tucking his chin into his capture weapon, hiding a small smile. You could sit in today. I can? Izuku beamed. Aizawa seemed to always know what he was thinking. Aizawa-sensei, who's that? The blonde-haired boy asked with a small smile. His name is Izuku. That's all you need to know, Aizawa said tiredly. The blonde-haired boy's smile got wider as he went over to Izuku, holding a hand out. Hey, I'm Mirio Totogata. Mirio's fine. Nice to meet you. This, he points to the black-haired boy who looked like he just wanted to go home. Honestly, Izuku couldn't agree more. It's Tamaki Yamajiki, and he pointed to the enthusiastic-looking girl. This is Nejire Hado. Midoriya's eyes narrow at the blonde, taking a small step back. Are you All Might or something? What's with all this smiling? Izuku questioned before the girl spoke up. Hey, that's not very nice. He just smiles a lot. Izuku winced at her loudness, albeit it was more of an excited tone, but still. Anyway, I'm Hado. You could just call me Nejire. Nice to meet you, Izuku. The greenette took another step back. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean it like that. Nice to meet you, Nejire-senpai. Oh, no need for that. Anyway, what's your quirk? Does it have to do with your green hair? How old are you? How'd you get that scar on your nose? Why do you call Aizawa-sensei by his first name? Her rambling caused Izuku to tense, going on alert instantly. Was this what it was like to be on the other side of his muttering? Thankfully, it was cut off by Aizawa. The greenette really didn't want to explain that Bakugo broke his nose by pushing him into a metal pole. That's enough. Izuku, go get your notebook and meet me at Gym Gamma. Izuku quickly nodded, signing a quick thank you before leaving. While waiting for Aizawa in Class 1A in Gym Gamma, Izuku sat on the windowsill of one of the back windows, pulling his notebook into his lap and turning to Nezu's page. He worked on finishing the sketch, knowing he had at least 30 minutes before they got there, so he'd have time. The quiet of the gym allowed him to focus, and he found himself lost in the details of his drawing, adding the final touches to capture Nezu's unique features perfectly. As Midoriya concentrated on his sketch, the minutes seemed to fly by. He added shading to Nezu's fur and fine-tuned the expression on his face, aiming to capture his teacher's intelligence and quirky charm. The gym remained quiet, save for the occasional sound of distant footsteps and the scratching of his pencil on the paper. Izuku found solace in these peaceful moments, away from the loudness of people and the sounds of the city. Just as he was putting the final touches on Nezu's page, he heard a voice call out to him, breaking his concentration. Izuku. Aizawa calls out to him before gesturing to the class. He glanced up at Aizawa before the class, noticing the 3 kids from before talking to one another. Oh. The greenette glanced down at his notebook before Aizawa. Do I need to move? He tilted his head in question. You're fine, problem child. Just get ready to take notes. Aizawa-sensei. The girl from before raised her hand, not bothering to wait for the underground protocol on her before speaking. Why is he here exactly? Izuku is here to do an analysis of your quirks, writing down your weaknesses and strengths. Izuku is here to do an analysis on your quirks, writing down your weaknesses and strengths to help you improve. Use this to your advantage and put your all into this exercise today so we can get a proper read on you and your quirk. Aizawa answered before sighing. You will all be going through an obstacle course through the fake city, first with your quirk, then without it. Avoid property damage and try to get to the end by the end of the timer. You will treat this as a real emergency and have 30 minutes to get to the scene. When Shota finished explaining, he sent the first student through, and Izuku immediately started taking notes, muttering at an inhuman speed. One thing he noticed as each student went through is that they relied too much on the quirk. The first time they went through, they finished with much time to spare, while the second time they went, no one passed. Mirio was by far the worst, however. Yes, he could use his quirk to practically launch himself like a rocket to the other side of the city, but when he wasn't able to use it, he was practically useless. Shota? Izuku called out when everyone was done with the course, walking over to him while flipping a few pages. Mirio's at the top of your class, right? Aizawa nodded. Then, and I'm sorry for the language, but what the fuck is he doing? He relies too much on his quirk. One look from you and then poof, he loses. I mean, yeah, permeation is a great quirk for a hero, but not if you solely rely on it. In a real battle, a villain won't hold back, and if they have something to counteract Mirio's quirk, then boom, dead blonde. Not to mention there's one big weakness. I assume that because he can phase through atoms, then that means that he can't get them in. In other words, he can't breathe. Probably can't see either, given that light would just pass through him. There's several ways that someone could beat him. I can think of 3 right now off the top of my head. Making him run out of stamina by having him constantly phase through things, keeping him underground long enough that he runs out of oxygen, or just move a few steps away when he goes into the ground. That way, when he pops up, I'm already out of range, and he hits the wrong spot, and leaves himself open. Izuku dissolves into muttering, pinching his bottom lip between his thumb and index finger. You... Izuku shuts his mouth with an audible click and looks at Mirio with wide eyes. You got that just from watching me use my quirk for a minute? The blonde questioned, a look of complete shock on his face. Uh-huh. Izuku nodded, tilting his head slightly with furrowed brows. Why? That's really impressive. Not even I knew I had that many weaknesses, and it's my quirk. Izuku shakes his head. Not really, it's just a hobby. A light flick on the side of his head causes Midoriya to jump slightly, looking over to see Shota. Take the damn compliment, problem child. The dark-haired man smirked slightly before ruffling the brunette's curls. So, do you have an analysis quirk or something? Someone he didn't recognize spoke up. Izuku froze. What was he supposed to say to that? A gentle but firm hand on his shoulder calmed him down. He didn't even need to look to know it was Aizawa. I'm quirkless. A long and deafening silence filled the room before it erupted into chaos. What? A boy with brown hair yelled. How? You did all that analysis shit with our quirks! Another kid yelled. Yeah, there's no way! Aizawa sent a quirk-enhanced glare at all of them, silencing them instantly. Quiet. He'll give me a headache. Izuku is in fact quirkless. Do not put him down because of it. He is far smarter than all of you combined. So, if any of you have a problem with it, go pack your bags and leave now. I will not train quirkist heroes. Izuku looked up at Shota with teary eyes. This is exactly why he never wants to leave Aizawa and Yamada. They were so kind to him. The class remained silent for the rest of heroics, none of them daring to speak. Midoriya returned to his spot on the windowsill after providing an in-depth analysis of their quirks, and was now focused on sketching out their hero costumes. His pencil moved swiftly across the paper, capturing every detail with precision. He was currently working on Mirio's page. His costume was mostly white, save for the blue pants separated by a teal accent, yellow and green shoulder pads, a red cape and gloves, and thin yellow stripes that started at the shoulders and came down to meet the teal accent. The big yellow 1 million in the middle of its chest was the one thing Izuku couldn't understand. He got the rest of the costume. It was a parody of All Might's in a way, with the color scheme and cape, but why the 1 million? His quirk had nothing to do with numbers, so it couldn't be due to that, and it couldn't have something to do with All Might. Izuku would know. After all, he was an All Might fanboy. Or obsessor. Midoriya set his pencil down on the fold of where the pages met and shut the book, before looking over at 1A. They had been dismissed by Aizawa and were getting ready to leave. "Mirio!" Izuku called out as he saw a blonde tuft of hair. Mirio paused in his steps and glanced back before smiling and walking over to the greenette. "What's up, Izuku?" he replied cheerfully. "What's with the 1 million?" Izuku asked while pointing to his chest. "Oh, it's my goal." "Goal?" Izuku tilted his head in question. "Yep, I'm gonna save 1 million people. It also has to do with my hero name." "A million? And you guys haven't even picked your hero names yet." Izuku deadpanned. Mirio laughed before ruffling the greenette's curls, causing Midori to jump back with an eep noise. "You really are like Aizawa-sensei." Izuku turned red in embarrassment. "I am not," he squawked out. "You really are, Izuku," Mirio laughed out. The greenette grabbed his book and stood up, quickly making his way over to Aizawa. "I'm leaving," the teen grumbled. Once Izuku reached Aizawa's side, he asked, "I have therapy today, right?" Aizawa nodded, giving him a reassuring look. "Yes. We'll start heading over to Hound Dog in a second. I'm grabbing coffee first." Izuku smiled at that before walking beside Aizawa. Alright everybody, that concludes Chapter 4 of Broken Dreams and Healing Hearts. I hope you all enjoyed, and thank you for listening.